Hi guys, Ron here and welcome to the workshop. Today I'm going to talk about saddles. Now if you watch my videos then you probably know that I don't like using boutique components from small brands. I prefer the reliability and performance of tried and true products like these head wheels, for example, or the track frames. So these are all big manufacturer stuff, and usually the boutique components don't really offer any real advantage in terms of performance. Where that doesn't apply is my saddles. So a lot of people have been asking about the saddles that I use, and they are from a small boutique company, Colorado based, and they're called Dash Cycles, and they specialize in making super special bike saddles. So what's different about these saddles? Well, the first thing that's immediately apparent is the price. They are really super expensive for a saddle, but it's all worth it if you take the other things into consideration. So the second thing is design. They have a very cool, very comfortable, very modern design. I'm going to explain that in a minute. And the manufacturing process is completely unique, so that results in a weight that's unparalleled in this type of saddle. Plus, the fourth option, each of the saddles or the range of their high-end saddles is custom made, so you can have any color or design of the cover you want and the stitching you want, matte or gloss finish on some models. So it really is a custom item that you can keep basically for your whole riding career. And apart from being that lightweight, they don't really come with any serious weight limitation. I think they're up to 95 kilos at most models, so it's completely fine. Because there are some super light saddles, but they're usually not very comfortable, not designed with a narrow position in mind, and don't have any padding. They're not custom made, they have very low weight limits, so these are definitely a very, very unique product. And I'm going to be honest, I have to import these from the US because there is no European distributor, and I don't really like going through that hassle, but there's no really any other way that you can get the same kind of comfort or performance. Now all three saddles I have here, this is a Montrose saddle, so these are all Dash saddles, different kinds of models. I'm going to explain the range in a minute as well. So these are the custom ones, these are the expensive ones. You can get basically the same amount of features, design and comfort in their so-called stock range, which costs basically half as much as these. So if your budget doesn't stretch this far, it's no problem because you can get very near in terms of performance. So that's another neat feature they have added just recently. So let me start with this Montrose saddle for comparison. This is basically our standard saddle, although it's a pretty modern design, designed for an aggressive position. So this is the Montrose Pro, oversized carbon rails, and not a lot of padding, plus a super stiff hull. So I use this on my cross bike, and again the only reason I do that is because I didn't want to go through the hassle of importing a Dash saddle just for that one. But I'm going to use it as a comparison here. So yeah, carbon rails, not too much padding, and a traditional design. Let me just weigh that. Yeah, so that's 164 grams, pretty light, but nothing groundbreaking in terms of light saddles. There are saddles as light as 60 grams. And because I sold my old TT bike and the saddle with it, I had to stick my white Dash saddle from the Madone on my new TT bike until my new time trial saddle arrives. And I used this one on my road bike, and at first I found it pretty comfortable. I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm not too fussy about saddles. I'm not a very long time rider, but I don't know, somehow my butt has managed to make do with all different kinds of saddles. The only problem I really do get is some chafing when I'm in the aero position, but that doesn't show when I'm riding, just afterwards when I do some longer weeks. And it's not in the case of the dash saddle, but it definitely is in this one. What I've noticed is its stiffness. So this saddle doesn't really have too much give in it, plus the oversized carbon rails don't help it too much. So I found that a lot more shock goes through on the Madone than on my dash saddle, so that was a direct comparison. Whereas on the cross bike, this is very good enough because the ISO speed on the Boon is a lot softer even when you're going off-road, so a stiff saddle doesn't really matter. Plus you're not doing nearly as long on a cross bike, plus you don't have the same kind of aggressive position. So yeah, my point is here that if you're not riding a very aggressive position, so you're not on a TT bikes, you're not on a road bike with a lot of drop, then you're not going to have so much trouble choosing your saddle. But if you want to really get into those air positions while still being comfortable, then you will need to look for a saddle which is not traditionally shaped with the nose like this one, but rather something like a Cobb saddle, an ISM saddle, or the Physique Mystica, or the Tritoni, the older model. So you're going to need something like this, and they work very well. Apart from one thing, the problem with those is, again, they are super stiff. That's one thing, and they're usually super heavy as well. So an ISM weighs basically double the weight of a saddle like this. And if you're on a high-end bike, that's not necessarily something you want. Plus, the added thing is that time trial bike is usually quite heavy by itself, plus adding a 300-gram saddle on there, not going to help you in the climbs. The solution stands here right as it is. So let me start with the Dash Stage 9. So yeah, this is a time trial / triathlon saddle. It's pretty long and fully padded until the very end of it. And as you can see, it's more cut out than saddle actually. So this model, as I said, triathlon and time trials, it's long enough to be UCI legal, so I chose this one this time. And you can select 3 different widths. I'm not a very big rider, so this is the narrowest width. I know from experience that this is what suits me. And it has a split blunted nose, so effectively you're using this area of the saddle, the rest of it is just to be long enough to make it UCI legal. And let me just weigh that. So remember, this one was 160-ish with not too much padding. This is 116, and that's for a time trial saddle. With the custom option of having a lot of foam padding, you can choose 4 different levels on there. This one has all 4 of them. Despite that, the thing weighs 115 grams, which is quite amazing for a saddle of this construction. Part of the reason for that is that if you look at the traditional saddle, it's essentially made of 3 distinct parts. So you have the saddle base, then you have the cover and the padding glued to it, and then you have the rails bonded in. So you have a lot of material overlap, a lot of redundancy. I can't really imagine how Dash do this, but they have, and I think it's an absolute unique in the cycling industry, the whole shell and the rails are bonded from a single piece of material in a single mold. So there's no material overlap, there's no redundancy, and thus the weight is extremely low. And then on top of that, you just add the padding and the cover, and that's it, that's your saddle. So I've been riding these for almost 2 years now, and they're extremely comfortable. I can stay in the aero bars for literally as long as I want. I've done 3 hours Zwift rides fully locked into my time trial position without ever needing to deviate because of a saddle sore. So if you have an issue like this one, then I really recommend trying this or the stock version of this saddle. The stage 9 from this one, there is a stock version, so you can get the cheaper option as well. As I mentioned before, 3 different widths. Yeah, so this is the stage 9. One thing you can notice is there's no real white part, so it's not really necessary for road bikes and upright positions because it's not going to serve or support your butt in an upright position just when you're rotated forward. So this saddle is for triathlon and TT bikes only. Then you may already know this one. This is the Dash TT9. It's not my old saddle, it's actually a brand new one for a customer. It has a matte finish, you can choose that. And the front of it is basically identical to the stage 9. The rear one, obviously it's not a functional part, it's just this carbon fairing. Plus on the underside you have a bottle cage mount. So I think this is a really good option for if you're doing long triathlons, because you can put a bottle in basically the very fastest position there is on the bike. And yeah, the front is the same, you can get the same 3 widths, although this one is not available in the stock program. Yeah, so I'm not planning to do any more triathlons. I was playing around with the idea of that. That's the reason why I got this one for my previous bike. Yeah, so let me just weigh this. 123 grams with the bottle cage holder basically built in. Same one-piece construction. Pretty amazing as well. Then there's an even lighter version of this saddle. It's called the Tri 7. Now that's too short to be UCI legal, and you can imagine it as this saddle without this rear part, plus a little bit joined in here. So that's their very lightest triathlon or aero bar compatible saddle, but as I said, too short to be legal for time trials. Okay, so these were the aero position saddles, but on a road bike you also want to be able to ride upright sometimes. You're not always in a breakaway after all. And that's where this one comes in. This is perhaps the most interesting saddle in their lineup, and it's a bit of a hybrid. This is called the Strike 9, and this one is a little bit road bike oriented. As you can see, if I hide this front part, and if I had one more hand, then I could hide the rear part as well, then it's quite traditionally shaped apart from the large cutout. But the front is still shaped like a proper time trial saddle, basically the same as these. So what this does is it makes you able to go very comfortably in a very aero, very low position, but at the same time, if you want to just sit back, then it also has this wide swooping area to support your back over there. Plus also a little extension behind. This is again just to meet the UCI regulations for saddle length. Plus again one-piece construction. This one is available though as a stock version, so not custom, a little bit cheaper, a little bit heavier. Let me just weigh this one. This is the heaviest, 130 grams, still quite a bit lighter than traditional saddle. So I use this on my road bike and I just love it. I wouldn't change it for anything else. So yeah, completely unique in construction and design. If you want to go fast in a road bike, race it and be comfortable, this is the saddle you want. So a couple more words about the construction of the saddle, and there are some features that add to even more comfort. So you get, on this one, you also get quite a bit of flex in this direction because the laminate is quite thin at the base plate, And then if you notice, the saddles and the rails are quite a bit taller than a regular saddle. I'm not sure it's visible like this, maybe from this angle. Yeah, you can see it's a lot taller, probably a whole centimeter or so. So again, this makes the rails longer, which adds a bit to the weight, admittedly, and you need to have less exposed seat post. But the upside is that the rails can flex a lot more, thus providing a little bit more comfort. And another very, very nice and very unique feature again is that despite having full carbon rails, they're actually round, so they're not oversized. That means they will fit any traditional clamping system. If you use a clamping system that comes from the sides, you know the pain, because you need to have two different saddle ears or saddle clamp ears to fit different kinds of saddles for the carbon ones. But the dash saddles, they're round as a traditional steel or titanium rail saddle, so that's a very nice feature. Okay, I think this was quite an exhaustive review and introduction of the dash saddles. There is one more model available. It's called the Slate. I've never used it actually, and it has a very similar construction, but design-wise, it's more of a traditional saddle. I think for a mountain bike, a super light build, that might be fine. Okay, now it's time to put the saddles back on my bikes like they should be. Another thing I would note is that I finally have my seat post as well for the speed concept, so that build is complete again. So now it's only time to go racing, hopefully. Okay, so yeah, this was a little episode about my saddles and why did I choose them. I hope you found it useful. Now if you want to see more about the bike setups, the bikes that I have here, these are my personal bikes, then don't forget to tune into the channel and subscribe. It's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.